advise that the members of the public will be given an opportunity to speak during public open session, but not at other times. The meeting is being filmed, and by being present, attendees are deemed to have agreed to be filmed and to the use of those images and sound recordings. I can advise that attendees should not disclose any personal information of individuals, as this would infringe the data protection rights of that individual. And as always, can I ask everyone to mute their microphones when not speaking? First item on the agenda is apologies for absence. I have apologies from Councillor Skilton and Councillor Jones. I think everyone else is here, so that's good. I'm going to move straight on to declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest, pecuniary or otherwise, in relation to any agenda item, please? Not seeing any hands, so I'll take that as a no. So we'll move straight on to Town Mayor's announcements. Nothing from me this week. Public open session, so we'll go straight on to public open sessions to adjourn for a period of up to 15 minutes to allow members of the public to put questions or to address the council pertaining to matters listing on the agenda. Do I have any members of the public wishing to speak? Yes, sir. Could I have your name, please, so that we can have you on record? If that's all right.
It's Harjit Nanda.
Okay, thank you.
I'm the postmaster from the post office on Bonds Lane.
Thank you.
I'm here really this evening to, I suppose, really talk a little bit more about the banking situation in Biggleswade. And now that Lloyds recently have announced that they're closing their branch in November, I think this really now puts Biggleswade into a position of being able to apply for a banking hub. We feel, and through the research that we've done so far, that Biggleswade could be strongly considered for that. Appreciate that it is on the agenda today. What I wanted to really sort of let you all know is that we've already spoken, my wife and I, as the postmaster and postmistress, with the post office banking hub organisational team, and really put it on their radar that Biggleswade now is going to be, in a position come November that the only sort of facility really will be nationwide as a building society. That doesn't affect the application of a banking hub, given that it is a building society and not a bank. So that is kind of really one of those criteria there. With all of the, I suppose, nearest banks available to the community of Biggleswade being of a far distance, to be able to travel. So it's really about sort of taking you through the process of applying, through cash access and link to really request Biggleswade to be considered for a banking hub.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you. Councillor Fage.
Just following on from that on the banking hub. So a motion came to full council at Central Beds a couple of months ago regarding a full audit across Central Bedfordshire, which is being conducted by some officer in Central Beds, and I'm happy to get their name if that would be helpful. Basically trying to find some of the hot spots that would benefit from a banking hub. And one of the things that has obviously changed since then is we've had some movement on Barclays, but also Halifax and now Lloyds. So given the motion that you have this evening in front of you, I know Councillor Patel's obviously put quite a lot in writing, but it's very possible that there's work underway at Central Beds that you can also tap into if that would prove helpful, because there's no doubt they'll be covering Biggleswade as part of that ongoing work that those officers are doing. Okay, thank you, Councillor Fage, much appreciated. Okay, anyone online, Catherine, wishing to speak? No, okay. So in which case we'll move on to item 5, which is our invited speakers. So we have the representatives from Northall Parish Council, and obviously we have Councillor Daniels with us as well. So over to you. I'm going to just leave the introduction there, and the floor is yours.
Good evening, Chairman and Councillors. Officers. I'll put the microphone on. I'm Paul Daniels, ward member for Northall. On my right, I've got Rob Smith, who's chairman of Northall Parish Council, and on my left, I've got Mike Wells, who is a resident from Ickwell. You've probably know him because he's been here before, and he spoke at your meeting on the 28th of March 2023. Where you all agreed overwhelmingly to support an idea for an underpass. For us, the purpose coming here today is to bring you up to date with what's going on over the last couple of years, to understand Biggleswade Town Council's current thinking, and ask for your support going forward. So the first thing I want to say is, if we do not get a sustainable crossing by footpath 7 I do not say this lightly. Somebody is going to get killed. Okay, so that is my number one statement. Since the last meeting, we've had another 120 houses built on the west side of the A1. In my view, 45 of them are unsustainable because they are described as affordable housing. Many are inhabited by families with small children. There is no effective bus route or shop close by, and the children will need taking the car to school. The Woodlands estate has many hundreds of people working there, and no provision has been made for them to get across the A1. The employers on the Woodlands estate are still sending buses into Biggleswade to bring their employees the long way round when they could simply be crossing the A1 safely. Do you remember the LC WIP, the local cycling and walking infrastructure plan that Central Beds carried out in 2022, consulting residents in Potton, Sandy and Biggleswade? There were 826 responses, and 100 of those responses were for a crossing at the A1. When the LC WIP report was published in November 2023, no provision was made for a crossing at that location. Richard Fuller, who's our MP, held a series of meetings where he brought interested parties together, which included the council, National Highways and the developer. Nobody from Central Beds attended the last meeting, so Richard felt without the county council's support for a solution, there'd be no point in holding any further meetings until they decided to engage. It is important that all parties do engage and that we have Richard back supporting this very important campaign. By working together, I believe we can now achieve this. An outline planning permission application was submitted in April 2024 to develop the Woodland site with nearly 27,000 square metres of warehouses. This application was withdrawn in December of last year. North Hill Parish Council objected to it mainly because it had proposed a bridge which was not fit for purpose. There are other planning reasons why the Parish Council objected to it. Our thanks to you here at BTC for the letter of objection sent to the planning officer at the end of last year. We did a leaflet drop in Upper Caldicott of approximately 700 houses, which proved that residents want an underpass and not a bridge. I've got a statement here from Active Travel England who are saying that the underpass and the proposed bridge was not fit for purpose. If we accept a bridge, which is what the developer wants to do, we will never ever get another opportunity for an underpass. We're expecting another application sooner rather than later. And as you know, the developers are our best source of funding. So now is the time to all work together to be ready to plan. It's an opportunity for joined up, coordinated thinking for an underpass campaign. CB planning officers expressed concern about traffic load on local routes and was adamant that Woodlands could not be only a car access site. North Hill Parish Council wants to partner with Biggleswade Town Council and form a campaigning team to work together on this issue. Together we have a louder and stronger voice. Together we can make an effective challenge to CBC and National Highways and overcome their reasons for wanting an underpass. If a new planning application is submitted, we can also liaise with the developer. An underpass has not been costed, a survey has not been done by any agency. North Hill Parish Council would like to form a campaign team with you to meet regularly and to report back to the respective councils. Councillors from each group meeting very regularly. Councillors from each group to decide the configuration of the working group. Sorry, I've lost my words for a second there. To inform the press of our progress, to include in our town and parish council newsletters, Biggleswade Chronicle, our websites, social media, and all the other channels of communication we have. There has never been a better time to create a sustainable underpass access into Biggleswade from the west. It's the right time. Getting people out of cars align with every possible government initiative, including sustainability and active travel. The Woodlands landowner wants to develop more of the site, but just withdrew his application when he was faced with resistance from Active Travel England and CBC Senior Planning Officer. CBC and National Highways need a workable plan for an underpass before he tries again, and he's already offered millions, and I mean millions, towards a crossing. It's miraculous how perfectly the footpath 7 crossing is located on the most direct route from Woodlands and Upper Caldicott. It's the desired line, as planners call it, and then safe access into Biggleswade on the east side. It gets better. There is unused space on both sides of the A1 for the contractor's vehicle and enough width to divert the A1 carriageways during the work. The A1 doesn't even need to be closed. The developer's survey uncovered no utilities which can't be diverted. So why has it not been done? Neither National Highways or Central Beds Council want to take any responsibility. This is the current attitude. National Highways' remit is to run its A1 trunk road north-south through our community. It's no interest in our east-west connectivity. Central Beds Council has for decades had no plan whatever to solve this problem. Worse, CBC has handed out planning permissions in Upper Caldicott, which increase the numbers needing to access Biggleswade and the danger to those who run across the A1. CBC need to talk to National Highways and get some regular dialogue going and vice versa. Those meaningful conversations have not yet taken place. This is the perfect time, the perfect place. Biggleswade can now show the rest of the country, not just saying county, saying country, how sustainability cannot be just talked about, but achieved. And we need to do it before someone is killed using footpath 7. Now is the time for us all to act. Thank you for listening to me.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Daniels. So I'm going to offer up to members. Members, do you have any questions following that presentation? Councillor Woodhead.
Thank you very much, Councillor Daniels, for your presentation. I think you make a very compelling argument. I just really had one question. Obviously, there's on the other side of the A1 from Woodlands, there is a rather large supermarket, Sainsbury's, and I just wondered if you'd had any conversations with them, because I would think this would perhaps meet with some of their ESG objectives in terms of, you know, as you say, less traffic on the road, car parking, all that sort of stuff. And I would have thought having a big PLC on side as well might strengthen the argument.
We so far have not had any conversations with Sainsbury's, but that is not to say that those conversations won't happen. We're in very early stages, but that's very good point.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? Councillor Strawn.
Thank you. Councillor Daniels, you're talking about the development at Caldicott, but as you know, Central Beds Council are looking for a major industrial development to the south of Biggleswade. We've also got the Black Cat roundabout being altered. There's going to be more traffic coming through from that. If you get an east-west rail link as well, the A1 through Biggleswade, Caldicott is going to have considerably more traffic. So it's not just about the immediate development of the woodlands, but it's about all the other developments we've proposed, including Central Beds Council's own development that is going to increase traffic down there. And I'm fear you're right that if we don't do something about it and get a sustainable underpass there, that there will be fatalities there from the pedestrian point of view. So I think that point could be added into the equation. It's not just about the woodlands development. Caldicott's needed that, and Biggleswade have needed that underpass for many, many years now. But with Central Beds particularly going to increase very considerably the amount of employment land to the south of Biggleswade, and also with the best part of 2,000 houses planned for Biggleswade anyway. The more we desperately need that underpass.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to ask one. I'm going to be slightly controversial here. So I'm going to play devil's advocate. So there's a reason for that. So why is an underpass better than a bridge? And not to say I don't support the underpass, but I want some clarification to the question so that members of the public watching can understand what you're thinking is for an underpass instead of a bridge.
If I could answer that, Mike Wells, you kindly let me come speak a couple of years ago, and I'm grateful for this chance to come again. If I could take the second point first, the problem with the bridge in principle is that it's very high and it's a very long detour. The developers' drawings don't remotely show a suitable bridge, as Active Travel England was very quick to point out. It has to have much longer ramps, much wider, and they're indirect. So not only do people pushing children, wheeling scooters in disabled scooter have to get 6 point something meters up in the air, they also have to take a detour of 600 meters to use the ramps off the direct line. And when Councillor Daniels asked people in Caldicot, they told him in dozens that they wouldn't use the bridge. They either wouldn't or couldn't. It simply isn't an answer. And Active Travel England put that very clearly in the objection they put in May. The mysterious thing is that objection disappeared from the planning portal. We found it buried in the developer's transport assessment, but they're a statutory consultee. It should have been there in the planning documents, and for some reason it wasn't. We only discovered much later, but that is very odd. The Councillor Woodhead's question, it's interesting this about linking this with the greater area. The problem with doing that is we all know the A1 has been discussed for decades and no one gets anywhere. And upgrading the roundabouts is very necessary, very major, and it will take a very long time more. The great thing about the underpass only at footpath 7 is it's a relatively small project. The developer's offered already at least 3 million towards it. The MP has offered to find more from government, and it doesn't half fit with government objectives at the moment to get people out of cars. It can be delivered in one package, all on its own, and it should immediately not only get people out of cars on their short journeys into Biggleswade for school, station, whatever, but better still, it gets people coming into Biggleswade on foot or in cycle through the town centre. So it should genuinely have a very good impact on businesses in the town centre. People able and ready to stop at the shops and so on, which they don't currently do. We want to think of it as a separate issue, because if it gets linked yet again to the major issue of the A1, we're all going to be dead. It isn't going to happen in my lifetime, for sure. Thank you.
It's not a question, but I think in case our colleagues from Northern aren't aware, there is the new planning permission for land north of Biggleswade, which requires the developers to improve the access to the A1 along Hill Lane from the west. Because I asked the question about how does that help Biggleswade, because it doesn't actually, but it's to take the volume of traffic. So there's a recognition within Central Beds that there is a volume of traffic far greater than there was a few years ago. So I just think that's something else to take into account. And the other curious thing is that the planning permission for the houses to the east of Biggleswade, 1,500 houses, has a section 106 requirement, which I keep harping on about, I can't see ever happening, but the section 106 demands that the developer upgrade 3 roundabouts on the A1, Sandy and the 2 at Biggleswade. It's unviable in my mind. But, you know, again, it's recognitions all the while that there are problems, but nobody wants to grasp the nettle.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Russell. Councillor Knight.
Thank you for coming. So I think I know the answer, but I just wanted to check. So am I correct that you're looking for a foot and cycle crossing, not a bridle crossing at that location?
Oh, foot and cycle.
Yeah, I guess horses. What about, does it need to cover horses as well?
Yes.
It does. Okay, because I wasn't sure if the footpath connecting to it was a bridle way or a footpath.
Currently a footpath.
Okay, so your ambition is to upgrade that to being a bridle path, essentially. Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Councillor Barrett?
It's just a sort of vulgar question, really, just to understand a little bit of the background. Do we know what the cost is of the bridge versus the underpass?
The reason we don't know is CBC and Highways England have flatly refused to engage with it. The further reason we don't know is the developer promised the MP at the meeting just near enough a year ago that he would come back to the MP's next meeting with comparative costings, but he decided not to do it. He decided to only cost a bridge. And when the MP asked him why not at the August meeting, the developer said, well, we spoke to Highways England, they said they didn't fancy doing an underpass, so we just went ahead with the bridge idea. So we really don't know yet.
When the application come in the spring of last year, it went to North Hill Parish Council, who objected to it for very, very good planning reasons, but mainly because the bridge was not fit for purpose. So it went back to the planner, who re-engaged with the developer. Within a short time, the developer had made the bridge a foot wider, and that's all he had done, and thrown another £1 million at it, and expected North Hill Parish Council to accept it, because the developer wants to get this through because he wants his development. In my view, he's not really interested in the accessibility. We know that an underpass will work, and we know that an underpass is the best thing. I did an article in the Biggleswade Chronicle a couple of weeks ago, and I think I quoted as saying that I'd been off to Switzerland a few months ago, and when I went there, all over the continent there's underpasses and tunnels, and actually when you come back from France back into this country, there's a great big tunnel, and it's called the Channel Tunnel, and so I really believe that this thing can be engineered, and people who saying it can't be engineered are saying that because they haven't looked into it and they don't know the facts at the moment.
Okay, anyone else wish to speak before we summarise? And so, okay, so I think, thank you very much for coming to us. Clearly, as a town council at this stage, we can't make any decisions about what the next steps are for us. I think it's important that we do have it on a future agenda, Peter, so that we can actually formulate not both a response, but how we deal with your what you presented to us, but the way forward. And actually, I think we've got your presentation and your wording, which is really helpful for us as well to take forward. So we will certainly put it on our agenda for a future meeting, and then decide. I think broadly, as you know from previous experience, we've been supportive of the underpass. But I think it's what's the next stage now in terms of what we can do with getting a formal arrangement between the Biggleswade Town Council, North Hill Parish Council. But I think it's for council to decide where to go. So if you don't mind, we'll leave it there, but we'll certainly have it discussed in the future meeting. All right. Lovely. You're, as I always say, you're more than welcome to stay to see the rest of the meeting, but there's absolutely no need to do so. In which case, we'll see you in a second. I'm sure you'll be out the door as soon as you possibly can. So thank you very much for coming. I really is appreciated. Sorry.
Sorry, we do discuss this later on the agenda, don't we?
Of course we do, actually, yeah. So thanks for reminding me. Okay, are we're ready to move on then, if that's okay. So next item on the agenda is members' questions. Do we have any members' questions, please? Councillor Strawn?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Looking at items 9, D and E, which are interrelated as the reason neither are on the agenda are the same reason, would it be sensible to take the two together? Obviously, they're individual motions, but to avoid duplication of the arguments from D to E, if we could have the arguments all in one session, bearing in mind that there's two proposals, I wonder whether that might be easier rather than having a repeat in a sense of deja vu.
from my point of view as the chair in the meeting, I'm happy to do that, but I'm going to ask the Councillor Patel whether he's happy with that response, approach.
Yes.
And Councillor Wood, are you the same?
Yes, no problem. I mean, in a sense, D leads on to E anyway, so it makes sense, yeah.
In both of those, we'll allow both members who've put the motions forward to speak in any event. But if you're happy to that, we'll combine both motions together to formulate a response. If that's all right.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Okay. So next item, then we're going to go minutes and recommendations of meetings. So the first one is the Town Council meeting of the 7th of January. So firstly, for accuracy, so we're on page 8 of your pack. So accuracy, please, page 8. Page 9 for accuracy, Councillor Straw and then Councillor Agnew.
Just one very pedantic point at the end of item 8A, that he will share rather than he will shared this with the committee clerk.
Yep. Okay, thank you. And Councillor Agnew? Okay, lovely, thank you. We'll go on to page 10. Anything for accuracy, page 10 and page 11. Councillor Russell.
On 13B, members resolved that a representative highlight the Town Council's concerns at the upcoming Network Rail meeting. I do think that the concerns should have been minuted for the record. So if they could be in future, rather than a bland statement like that, please.
That's fine, I think so. We'll reflect on that and look at the minutes and make sure that that's adjusted. So I'll sign off the minutes with the comments on there. Okay. So subject to that amendment, you're happy to sign things off in due course? Yep. Okay, thank you. Then we have the Town Council minutes for the 21st of January. So again, for accuracy, please, on page 14 on the pack. Page 15. Page 16. Councillor Strawn.
Yes, on the little 2 at the top, we didn't say that the preferred level of precept, it's that the precept for the year is, so that is what we set. It wasn't actually a preferred level. It was the proposal of the Finance and General Committee that it was their preferred level, but we actually set the precept rather than implying that it was a nice thing to have.
Okay, thank you. So to remove the preferred level and preferred level of, and it's the precept. Yep. Okay. Anything else? No. And page 17 then, please. No. Okay. Subject to that amendment, then happy to sign those off, please. Yep. Okay. Thank you. And then we have the draft minutes of F&GP on the 14th of January. Unless there are any major anomalies there, we'll these for noting at this stage, and then we'll discuss it next go for F&GP. Okay, and the same thing. The next item is PLOS minutes for the 28th of January. Again, similar situations. Anything major that anyone wishes to mention, we'll note those ready for and then be considered at the next PLOS meeting. Okay, thank you. So I'm going to move then back to matters arising for the council meeting on the 7th of January. So matters arising on page 8, page 9, Councillor Alban.
Thank you. Item 6B, footpath and the revival. Councillor Woodhead raised this, and I see that the tree that was causing the issues has been removed, which must have been quite a task, I think, and you can still see the track marks of the heavy vehicles that were involved. But the bank is still eroded right up to the footpath. The footpath is fairly narrow at that point, and there's a fence sort of delineating the land next to it. So it seems to me that we're at risk of losing that, and if we did, that would block that footpath completely. So I wonder if we could feed that back to whichever authority might be responsible and see if anything can be done to repair the bank at that point. Now that the tree seems to be causing the problem by directing the current towards that, but you can see that could easily sort of still, the undercurrents there could eat away at the underneath the path.
Okay. Peter, do you, so we'll look at where the response needs to be. Do you wish to speak on this one? Yep.
Only to say that obviously, and I forwarded on to some members earlier, that we did raise this matter with CBC earlier. We got a holding reply from Mr. Dorrow at the time, if I recall. We did chase it. He assured us he would come back to us with further information. We're still waiting for that, but we can chase again. Yeah.
So it's a follow-up, so we'll keep that as a sort of an action then for the next meeting as well. So Catherine, if we can minute that, so it's recorded, so it comes up at the next meeting, please. Anything else then on page 9? No, okay, yeah.
Yeah, so 7A items, the second item there, item 6A. So this was about the ivy growth on Crab Lane Bridge, and I asked about this to initially find out who had actually carried out the work, and also to ask about what the cutting schedule is, because this is obviously a perennial problem. I just wonder if we have heard anything back on both of those points.
Yep.
Thanks. No, I don't think, to my recollection, we haven't heard anything back on that, but we can follow up on that as well to get an answer.
I think just at
Beyond
this
the
point.
seasonal sort of
Okay,
thing.
thank you. But just at this point as well, from a accuracy of the minutes, it might be worth amending to make reference specifically to Crab Lane, because the minutes don't reflect that. So if we can amend the minute to reflect that it relates to Crab Lane specifically, that I think will make it helpful for future visibility. Anything else on page 9? No. Okay, page 10, please. And page 11 for matters arising. Nope. Okay. Anything relating to exempt meetings will deal minutes will deal with within the exempt session. So please just remind me when we come to that. If I don't recall that at that point, please feel free to raise a point of order. When we come to, so we're going to move on to the minutes of the Town Council meeting on the 21st of January. So matters arising on there on page 14, page 15, page 16. And page 17. So no matters arising there. Okay, so in which case I'm going to move straight on to the next item on the agenda, which is the meeting schedule. You'll see in the pack that there, I have to say, I got a little bit confused when I reviewed the pack at the first instance. The fact that there's two versions of, there's 2024 and 2025, and I got a little bit confused, I have to say. That's my issue, not anyone else's. But what it does show is we've got current year and future year. So can I just say, are there any comments in relation to the meeting schedule, please? I've got Councillor Russell, then Councillor Strong, then Councillor North.
The future dates at the bottom of page 32. It says annual assembly 6th of May. Which is not the same as annual assembly the 29th of April, and the 29th of April is the date we'd already got in the diary for the annual assembly. And then the dates at the top of page 33 are correct, except that I've got in my diary that there's a personnel meeting on the 20th of May, not the 3rd of June, and that's already in the diary from what we were advised earlier. So I don't know whether there's a reason why that was moved, but I would prefer it to go back to the 20th of May if that's possible.
And Councillor Russell, I'll answer the question why it was moved. I think that was probably partly instigated by myself in relation to where other meetings fell. So perhaps I'm happy for it to move back again. It was just a suggestion to try and align the dates. So because we've got meetings around the budget meetings, trying to get the cycle sort of more balanced. But I accept the fact if you've got a meeting on there, it doesn't matter to me. I think there was a suggestion that it might be helpful to push it back, but
it's just that we'd already been given that date and it's in the diary, and I've planned other things.
Okay. Everyone else happy to move it back to the 20th? In which case we move that one back to the 20th of May. Is that right, Councillor Russell? Yes. Yeah, but that's okay. Anyone else? Councillor Woodhead.
Yeah, I just want to point out that because the 20th of May is already the annual statutory meeting, so what's now going to be the annual statutory meeting? There's going to be. On the 13th, okay, so we need to be clear about which one's the correct one there.
So the 13th of May is the
Right.
annual statutory. I think if at the bottom of page 32, the dates are slightly off. So
Okay.
ignore page 32, page 33 are the correct dates.
Fine,
Subject to
okay.
change.
I have no problem. I was just, it would just, yeah.
So annual statutory is the 13th of May. Yes, and annual assembly is the 29th. Councillor Strawn?
Right.
It's on page 33. There is no time on the 15th of July for the town centre management meeting. That should have 7 PM in it.
Thank you.
And on page 34, at the beginning of January, there does not appear to be a Finance and General Purposes Committee meeting for the purposes of setting the budget or recommending the budget to the precept meeting. Is that correct? Because we've had one this year, and I would have thought we would have had one next year as well.
You're quite right. We have previously had that. I mean, we've got, so that would mean a 5th meeting. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't have a meeting. Or are you suggesting we move the to 2nd of December? That's 2nd of December meeting is the sort of budget.
I was thinking probably the 6th of January would have been the time to have the meeting, rather as we did this, I think, this year on the equivalent date.
Peter, happy with that? Yep.
Absolutely, yeah.
So additional F&GP meeting on the 6th of January, which will, by which point we'll have consolidated sort of some of the budget work. And you'll note this year that particularly within the meeting schedule, so that the committee meetings in sort of late October and early November specifically have a budget reference, so that allows the committees to fully consider the budgets on the back of feedback from this year. And I think it's the right thing to do. So we've taken that feedback on board. Councillor Knight.
Thank you. Top of page 34, being mindful of work-life balance for officers in particular, November seems quite intense.
Yes.
And I was wondering whether the meeting that's scheduled here for the 18th of November could be planned for the council reserve instead. And then if it turns out to be other business, it could be considered on that evening. So people at least get the 18th off.
Thoughts on that? Happy to do that? Yeah. I guess it becomes a council meeting in any event, so let's do that. Good idea. Yeah, so move that. So 18th becomes, so the 25th is broader budget setting meeting. Thank you. Good idea. Ernest.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I was mindful of the number of meetings, so that's why my suggestion was obviously I have another meeting with chair of finance and deputy chair earlier on, but my idea is to reduce the number of meetings. So I was hoping that the meeting for finance in December would be the meeting that finance proposed the budget to town council instead of having another meeting in January for it to decide. But it's for members to decide, though, not mine. It's just a suggestion.
So the suggestion being that not having a council budget meeting, and then we have an F&GP meeting the week after. Councillor Strawn, you got? Okay, Councillor, go on, Councillor Rush. You were indicating.
I understand what Mr. Bore's saying, but I think a meeting on the 2nd of December is too early to finalise the budget. We don't know that we'd have all the relevant information. And I think that what Councillor Strawn has proposed as having a meeting on the 6th of January is better. It's up to Councillor Strawn how many meetings he thinks the committee needs, but I prefer us to have an F&GP to recommend the precept in January rather than in December.
Councillor Strawn?
It's been rather presumptuous that I'm chairman of finance next year. After this year, I might well not be. I think
on that basis, though, Councillor Strawn, in the event either way, can we have your view on it?
I think it makes sense to have a budget setting meeting closer to the actual precept because it gives time for changes. Because this year we were finding circumstances were changing at a national level that could alter the figures in that month. So. I think the 2nd of December is too early for a final budget setting meeting, and I appreciate Mr. Ball's observations to cut down on the workload, but I think we should have the pre-budget setting meeting or final one just before full council for preset.
So just to be clear then, so we're maintaining the 18th, so the 25th of November meeting that Councillor Knight referred to becomes a council broader budget setting meeting and then the 2nd of December, still a F&GP budget meeting, and then another meeting on the 6th of January to discuss the same, again, an F&GP meeting on the 2nd.
If any meeting could be dropped of those two, I'd have said it would be dropping the 2nd of December meeting rather than the January meeting. So I think I'd be quite happy if officers were happy that that was practical. We've got the broad budget meeting on the 25th of November. There may be tweakments that need to be done before the next budget setting meeting, so it may give more flexibility to officers and indeed members to comment after reflection on the broader budget setting meeting.
But my challenge to that only is that the way we've done the budget meeting setting was so that every committee has the opportunity to review the budget, and by taking out the 2nd of December, that wouldn't allow F&GP to consider the budget in advance of the meeting of the 6th of January, which so again, not making things difficult, but I'm just conscious that you take one out, you decide, or are we saying that the broader budget setting council meeting isn't where I'm just conscious that taking it out means you haven't got an F&GP meeting beforehand.
Would it help if we had that as a reserve meeting for finance and general purposes on the 2nd of December in case of need, depending on how the meeting on the 25th of November goes? All the committees will have met and considered the budget before then, which the broader council meeting will be setting the idea towards the F&GP recommendation meeting. I'm quite happy to have both or one. It's up to members.
Okay, Councillor Knight and then Councillor Alban.
So I suppose I'm thinking the idea of that meeting is less to consider the precept, but more to consider the responsibilities of F&GP, expenses relating to heat, light, general administration, and the items in the budget that F&GP is responsible for, which I do think need to be considered by that committee.
Councillor Alban?
My point's been covered, thank you.
Okay, so given that we've got a broader council meeting on the 25th, there's a feeling that the F&GP need to have an opportunity to consider the items that the committee is particularly responsible for. So I think I'm sensing that we keep the 2nd of December meeting on the agenda, and then at that point, Councillor Strong, maybe depending on whether you're chair of the committee and the committee decides whether it's appropriate or not. Most of the members will be at the council meeting, the broader council budget setting meeting. It may be a decision at that point that it may not be necessary, but let's keep it on the agenda on the schedule for now. Okay. Any other comments then? No. Okay. I think we've got there in the end. Thank you very much. So. Next item on the agenda then is the Christmas lights tender expression of interest for members to receive and consider a written report from the Adrian HR manager.
The council reached the end of its Christmas light contract at the end of last year, and in order to take out a new contract, we need to go to tender. So a draft tender document has been put together for members' comments, additions, alterations, and also for members to nominate which members will sit on the assessment panel for the tender evaluation.
Okay, so thank you very much for the report. I think it's a really detailed report. I'm going to go straight into members' comments, feedback on there, and I think it's useful to I think it's the first time we've seen this. I think so. Just interested what feedback we've got. Councillor Alban.
Yeah. So on page 43, it's got the it sets out the program of works and when the switch off will be and the removal date, etc. I don't know if this is the right place for this or not, but the past Remembrance Sunday, and I think the Sunday before, the lights were in place when the Remembrance Sunday was going on, and it didn't look particularly in place. So maybe this document isn't the place for that, or maybe it is, but just the timetable, I think, should perhaps say that the work should start after that, after Remembrance Sunday, rather than leaving it at some point in November.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Strong?
Yes, on page 43, the very top, its second line, it says the lights must be removed by January 6th in their entirety. My concern here is that they could be removed at any time before the 6th of January, including on the 25th of December, 26th of December, or 1st of January. I think the relevant point is that they should be switched off for the 6th of January. They don't need to be physically removed on that date or by that date, because otherwise you're actually cutting down on the 12 days of Christmas potentially, because if there's a penalty clause, as there is a bit later, I think that's totally unreasonable. So perhaps we could just amend that so that the lights will be switched off on the 6th of January, and they should be removed within a fortnight afterwards.
Thank you, Councillor Alban. Councillor Strong, sorry. Councillor Woodhead.
Thank you. Yeah, first point. Councillor Alban raised the issue about Remembrance Weekend. I think that's been covered. The two other points regarding Councillor Strawn's point about sort of 6th of January, couldn't we just say remove, following 12 days after Christmas or something like that, rather than giving a specific date, because it's clearly going to change every single year. So just a thought, rather than getting tied up in a specific date, because it could be a midweek, it could be a weekend, it might be easier. I don't know. And then the third point I wanted to raise was, I believe certainly at TCM and elsewhere, we talked about the additionality of laser lights as part of the Christmas light switch on and the Christmas sort of, if you like, the Christmas offering. And I'm not seeing that in here. It may not be, but we have talked about having a laser light show to sit alongside the lights as well. And that seems to be an omission that's not in here.
Okay. Anyone wish to respond to that? Or Helen, you okay? Yeah.
Yeah, so I just see it as sort of a separate Christmas event, whereas it's just about the lights, the decorations for the town. So the laser lights we can pick up in the event report with all of the different events throughout the year. So we can take that on.
Well, it may be that the contractors may also have laser lights. That's what I'm thinking, that the Christmas lights people, whoever we choose, may have a laser light capacity. Yeah. And it seems silly not to capture it in this document, because I would say, yes, they are probably separate, but they're connected at the same time. So, I mean, happy to discuss it outside this room, but I know we have discussed it at TCM, and it was something I think we'd agreed that we wanted to pursue. So it seems odd not to have it included.
Thank you. Councillor Russell. Thank you.
Well, the laser lights are obviously an extra on top of what our Christmas light offer is. I did talk to officers earlier, and they said that they had to remove some of the extras because they're very conscious of the budget for the Christmas lights. And of course, we've just set our precept, so the budget is set for the coming year. I was disappointed at the fact that we've pulled back from having lights in the entrance to Station Road, in the top of Hitchin Street, and over the bridge up as far as Stratton House, because we've had lamppost lights there in previous years. So that's one thing that I would quite like to see at least costed. But I do appreciate the fact that we've now set a budget and we've got to keep within that budget. But unless we have these things costed, we can't at some future point say yay or nay to these things. So I would like to see the lights extended a bit further, and at some point in the future, even round the corner into the top of Shortmead Street, because that would then cover the parts of the town that are actually commercial shops and businesses. So I'd like to put that one forward. And just going back to the removal dates, I think the suggestion of saying remove within a fortnight after the 6th of January is very reasonable.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Strawn.
And just taking into account Councillor Russell's comments, and indeed Councillor Woodhead's, in terms of the additional things that might be requested, we've got a base here, but I don't see that there's any harm in necessarily including a request if we were if there was room in the budget, that how much would it cost to take lights down Station Road or down to Stratton House? I think that's quite appropriate, but is it more appropriate for it to actually go to the working group to top and tail these actual issues rather than for us to spend a further half hour tonight trying to discuss down whether we're going to have 250 baubles or 225 baubles?
Thank you, Councillor Strawn. Peter, did you wish to comment?
Please, yeah.
And then Councillor Knight.
Firstly, I think this is a really good specification, and to thank Helen and her team for doing it. I think the level of detail is really helpful.
Yep.
The specification will guide, obviously, the submissions from the external contractors, and there's no reason why we can't stretch the specification and include some of the helpful comments from members this evening. That doesn't mean that the cost will go up. We need to test the market. So this is setting out what we perceive to be the right thing. This is saying the expected level of quality and what we expect to see from any submission. What they actually submit to us, we can then compare that to the budget. So let's stretch it as much as we can and get as much value for money from others as we possibly can. So I think all these helpful comments should be included.
Okay, thank you, Peter. Councillor Knight.
Thank you. You'll probably tell me it's explained in the document and I've missed it. So apologies if it's a stupid question, but we have a TCM meeting on the 18th of February. It seems a little bit odd to rush to put this on the contract finder the day before TCM. And I wonder why this isn't being considered by TCM rather than full council. Maybe it should be deferred to TCM to dig into some of these items.
I would say it's a council decision because this is quite a large item. So, I mean, we've all had a chance to have our say tonight. So I think we should go ahead because we need to get in well in advance because we know from previous years and having been heavily involved in the first tender for Christmas lights, these people need to know who is chosen after the tender process and what lights they're going to have to put aside for our contract. And if we're too late in the year telling the contractor that they're the ones that are chosen, then there won't be as many lights available and they may not have everything that we want. And that's, I think, something that we need to consider because there's a great deal of competition in this market.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Barrett.
I just wonder whether we can agree all of this evening, which I think we should. And I just wonder, picking up on the other comments, whether TCM can actually just pick up the additional items that are being discussed tonight and agree those and include those. This doesn't have to go out before the 18th, I don't think. So it could wait until after the TCM. So if we can agree this tender in its current guise, I think TCM could then discuss the additional elements that might be useful. That might be a way forward.
Thank you, Councillor Barrett. Councillor Woodhead.
Thank you. No, I'm happy to have it on, as Councillor Barrett said, the sort of a bit more granular issues on the TCM agenda. That's no problem. Obviously, that goes out on Thursday, so we haven't got very long to sort that out. But I think my understanding why it came to full council meeting rather than TCM in the first instance was it's something I know all members probably have a strong view on, the Christmas lights. We're all involved in the light switch on and attended. It's obviously quite a high level of expenditure potentially, depending on who we get as well. And also the TCM agenda next week is actually quite heavy as well, but I'm happy to add some more on because I think it's the right place to discuss it. So,
Councillor Strong.
Yes, I just note the officer's recommendation is to place it on the contract finder platform from the 17th of February. If we've got a meeting on the 18th of February, can't we just sort of alter that date to the 19th of February? It's only 2 days, so it does allow any further thoughts that come out in the next week to be taken on board. And
okay, just as a point of note, I think we were touch on the number of lights that are in the plan. I think Councillor Rush, you were saying about having additional lights up to effectively across the bridge. I think the plan does seem to suggest that there will be lights there. I think that's planned in. So there's 24 lampposts. I think there would be additional ones, but that's not to say that we couldn't also put recommendations in for Station Road. And then I think that's something that would be helpful from TCM to look at what additional ones we might want to include. But I actually think the fact that we've got the 24 in there is a step in the right direction. But maybe we put an additional item to then think about what might be outside. A minimum expectation is this, but what else can we get for our budget? Perhaps that comes to TCM to discuss. But so broadly, are members happy with so what's presented, subject to reconsideration at TCM. So on that basis, I've got Councillor Patel. Go on, Councillor Patel.
So, yeah, just quickly, just regarding the bribery aspect, maybe we should add on there's another deterrent that it's got that it'll be automatic disqualification, and maybe reported to the appropriate authorities as well.
So add that into the item. So we've got a couple of things to resolve or make a decision on. So if I can find my recommendations, where are we? So the first item is for members to approve the light tender document and for placing this onto the contract finder. We've said from the 19th, subject to consideration at TCM. So broadly, okay. So if anything, additions rather than any removals. Is happy with that? Yep. And then second item then is for members to nominate which members will sit on the assessment panel for the tender evaluation. So do I have any volunteers or anyone wishing to sit on the assessment panel for the tender evaluation? Councillor Russell, Councillor Woodhead, anyone else? Councillor Patel. I don't mind going on to that as well. So that should be 4 people. Should be sufficient. Okay. Catherine, you have that? Yeah. Lovely. So do you need a formal resolution? So all those in favour of that approach, then please show. I think that's unanimous. Okay, thank you very much. We'll move on to where are we? 9C. This is the safety of lithium-ion batteries campaign. So you have the find it. So you have the email from Ron Bailey. Any comments, thoughts on this, please? Councillor Alban?
I think we should support this campaign. I'm sure we've all seen reports of sort of unregulated charges and batteries and the tragedies associated with them catching fire. This also talks about conversion kits for bikes to convert them into e-bikes, and some of the kits you end up with very powerful e-bikes, and they present a danger to pedestrians and other road users too. So I think this is very worthwhile supporting, and I would propose that we support this as a council.
Okay, Councillor Strong.
I'm more than happy to second that proposal. I'd just point out that certainly with regard to e-scooters, these are meant to be illegal at the moment, and here we are legislating for them being legal by saying that, but certainly batteries are a potential great danger, and therefore they have to be made safer in some form or other, so the campaign seems perfectly appropriate.
Councillor Knight, then Councillor Woodhead, then Councillor Barrett.
So it's difficult. I'm not an expert on electrical safety when it comes to batteries, but I am aware that there are perfectly good regulations like CE now, UKCA as a result of leaving the European Union, which do cover electrical safety. And my concern is that a lot of the dangerous devices may in fact be grey imports that don't meet existing regulations, as opposed to being products that would be safer if there was more regulation. Certainly if you go to a lot of the online sites, Temu and so on, you can buy stuff in the UK that frankly doesn't meet the existing safety standards. They're imported legally. The person who's placed them on the market isn't adhering to the regulations. I've been to factories in China having debates with manufacturers around the CE label and asking to see their declarations of conformity, where they reluctantly admitted they didn't have any because CE stands for China export, which is a lie. So I'm not going to support this motion, really, because I'm not an expert on the regulations, and I wouldn't like to see additional regulation without thoroughly understanding the loopholes that may exist. And actually my preference is to enforce the regulations that already exist properly and put a stop to unsafe imports of products that don't meet the regulations that already exist.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Knight. Councillor Woodhead, then Councillor Barrett.
I think it's just a point of information on the e-scooters. I think they're illegal on the public road, but I think you can probably use them on private land. So people might still have them. Arguably, I'm not defending that, but I think they're illegal to use rather than to buy. But anyway, otherwise, I'd take all of Councillor Strawn's points, and I think whilst accepting Councillor Knight's issues around the regulation, I think the broad thrust of what I think the motion is trying to put forward is one that we should welcome.
Thank you. Councillor Barrett and then Councillor Alban.
My question was just to just gain some clarity about what we mean by support. Do we actually mean verbal and providing our logo, or do we mean in the future financial support? I wasn't clear what they were asking.
I'm going to come. I'll ask Councillor Alban to clarify.
I wasn't proposing any financial support.
Okay.
Just supported generally, but I'd like to.
Can I just clarify? So, in what format would that support be? Would you say in the response in a letter format, or respond? How would you see that we're
whatever is appropriate? If a letter is appropriate, then yes.
Okay.
Yes. But I'd like to address Councillor Knight's point about marketplaces, online sales and so on. It does cover that in the last bullet point, in that it says online marketplaces through which many goods are sold nowadays that should be subject to the same safety regulations as high street shops, which is currently not the case. So I think it is covered by that bullet point.
Okay. Any other comments, please? So we've got a proposal to support this campaign in whatever format we deem appropriate. So it sounds though it's a response via letter is appropriate. Are we happy with that? Seconded by Councillor Strawn, again, happy with that format. Okay, all those in favour then please show your against and abstention. So, okay, that vote is carried. Thank you very much. We will move on to item 9D, but as we've discussed already, 9D and 9E will sort of be combined. But for the purpose of administration, Councillor Woodhead, if you sort of speak first, and then Councillor Patel, if you wish to do so, and then we'll sort of amalgamate the actions as a result of
that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I mean, I think the motion I put forward is relatively self-explanatory. As we found out recently, Lloyds Bank in Biggleswade is closing in November this year, and we've had colleagues will remember from previous council meetings we've followed this up about possible closures or reduction in hours and so on and so forth. And I think the correspondence is some of the correspondence is attached in the documents as well. I think really what I'm wanting council to support is that we've formally contact Lloyds Bank PLC headquarters just to lodge our displeasure or disappointment. I think, as I put about the closure, I think we need to get that on the record. But also the secondary part, which also links to Councillor Patel's motion, is also the issue around ATMs and the reduction of ATMs within the town, which is connected to this, because Lloyds Bank have two, I believe, in their premises, one of which is accessible out of hours, another one which isn't. And we will obviously lose those as the branch closes, which then only gives essentially one bank or financial institution operated ATM, and all the rest are basically private run ones, which I don't feel are as safe and as regulated as bank and building society operated ones. So I think that reduction in cash is a particular issue. So I'm hopeful that colleagues will support this. But I think it also does link in with Councillor Patel's motion as well. So one does link with the other. And also we've heard the fantastic presentation from our postmaster in Biggleswade as well on Bonds Lane, who I know have been doing excellent work in supporting many in the community who are struggling with the bank closures, who need help with counter transactions and cash and so on as well. So I want to draw attention to the work that they're doing as well and the support they're giving to the town within this as well. So I think that's basically it. So hopefully, colleagues feel able to support or come back with any questions.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Woodhead. Councillor Patel.
Yep. So my feelings and motion is as per page 79, which is before you. Just echoing Councillor Woodhead's thoughts as well on this. But furthermore, since that, I think what we do need to consider is we do have Nationwide, and they have publicly promised to stay until 2028. However, digging into that a bit more, their website actually states that there may be circumstances outside their control that mean that they have to close a branch, but they'll only do that if they don't have another workable option. Looking into their lease, their actual 15-year lease runs out on Christmas Eve 2027. So I think we need to be thoughtful of what perhaps may happen then. Will they sign a new lease? If so, how long? Will they have a break clause? It's difficult to say, but I think there might be scope there to try and reach out to Nationwide maybe to just see what their thoughts are once their lease runs out. Yeah, that's another factor to consider too. And again, yeah, I think we should try and support the local postmaster and postmistress in obtaining the banking hub in the town.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Patel. So Councillor Woodhead again.
Yeah, it's just really a follow-up on the banking hub issue. Of course, the Nationwide is still there, and there's a debate about whether they'll stay beyond 2027 or not. Of course, it's a building society, not a bank, and I think that does make a difference. I know that many residents and others are using the Nationwide, but they don't have all the same financial products that a bank might have. They're not a clearing bank, which does make a difference. So I do think that now puts us in the position where a banking hub is perhaps more realistic and more achievable than perhaps it was. And there's one opened up in Ampshill recently as well, so there is a relatively local precedent for this. So just something to consider, that the building society is they obviously spent money on it after the unfortunate ram raid last year as well, so they did invest some other money keeping it open, but it isn't a bank in the truest sense of the word, and I think it's important we make that distinction.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Felton will come back.
Yeah, so the reason why I mentioned Nationwide is potentially there would be an argument to say there is Nationwide Building Society. However, the fact that they're potentially, their lease will be finishing in 2027, maybe scope that, they won't renew it in the current climate. So that would be sort of like a positive that their lease is finishing. And I believe for the criteria for a banking hub, maybe corrected, building societies don't count towards it. So the fact that there is one is irrelevant for the necessity of a banking hub or the assessment of a banking hub.
Perfect. Okay, thanks, Councillor Patel. So Councillor Barrett, then Councillor Knight.
I'm broadly supportive of both motions. The Lloyds Bank letter, I'm not sure what good it will do, but I don't see any reason why we shouldn't do it. Yep. When we're talking about the banking hub, I think we must always bring into, it's not in the motion at the moment, but we must say cash access, because that's the organisation we need to talk to about doing the assessment. So at this point, I'd be very supportive of us following through on all of the items on the motion here, as laid out by Councillor Patel and also Councillor Woodhead.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Knight.
Thank you. So I support the motion. I am concerned about the access that businesses will have to deposit cash and to get change from the post office. And I guess that's to be tested. Hopefully they can provide a similar service. But of course, a banking hub is not a substitute for a full banking branch. And, it's likely to have different salespeople there on different days from representing different banks. So I think it's now necessary, but sadly still a loss for the town. I guess I just wanted to make a point about Nationwide. So Councillor Woodhead's right, they're a building society, but I think the big difference is they're a mutual and they're owned by their members. And as far as I can see, because they're owned by their members, they are serving their members to a much higher standard. And the banks are owned privately by hedge funds, and frankly, they're not serving their customers anymore, which is why they're closing their branches. So I very much hope Biggleswade will continue to support Nationwide in the same way that Nationwide is supporting us.
Thank you very much. Councillor Strawn.
Yes, I'm fully supportive of both motions. I think we should be adding little bits such as including the correspondence going to our MP. If one looks at what was said by Lloyds last year, they did promise to consult and they failed. I think that is really very disappointing. It's not going to make a great deal of difference. They indicate indeed in an email on the 29th of May to the town clerk that there's going to be a community banker. Now, what that means and how they're going to work that, I'm not too sure about, but having seen what happens with Barclays, where when you visit them in the library, they can't give you printouts. You can do very, very little there. Frankly, it's better than nothing, but it's not particularly good, and I'm concerned that this community banker will be the same. Now, on the screen, you'll see there's assessing a community's needs, and I believe that the reassessment that is available now, we didn't qualify, the Biggleswade did not qualify last year, but according to, if I read it correctly, one of the criteria is having a population of 10,000 or more without a banking facility. Biggleswade, as a town, has in excess of 20,000 population. There's also the adjoining villages of Langford, Broome, Upper Caldicot, Potton, even Sandy, and Sandy is not yet on the community hub list, as far as I could tell from when I did a quick search today. So I think we're ideally suited as a banking hub. Councillor Knight, I think, is quite right to say it will not be as good as having a proper bank, but we've also got development in the town coming up of already about 2,000 houses have outline planning permission. We also have a situation where we have a large industrial estate which is growing, and there will in all probability be in the next 5 years a very large industrial estate which will have businesses on it, it will have people working, and people do need access to facilities. One's also got to remember the elderly and the vulnerable, and even the young, because if you get to the stage where smartphones are bad from youngsters, they're going to need access to cash as much as the elderly. So I think there's a community issue here that is very major and that we must look at. The post office can do so much, but with respect to the post office, they're not a bank per se, and they're certainly not a commercial bank in the sense that there's lots of businesses in town, and the way it seems to work with the post office and banks is that if a business wants to bank things, they can pay it in at the post office, but if it's checks and things like that, they then get posted on to the banks. And I have known occasions in other places, such as Sheffield, when Barclays closed there, money checks were sent to the Barclays via the post office, and they never ever arrived. And that can cause considerable difficulties for business. So yes, I'm fully supportive of the motion. I think we need to be asking questions of Lloyds as to just seek clarification as to why they didn't let us know. I think we need to be copying in our MP and stressing the urgency. But Biggleswade is a hub in itself. We're the largest town in the immediate locality, and I think it's essential that we get indeed seek the support of the other local councils, such as Langford and Northell, to provide this facility for the people of the area. And also, we need to look after those who are more disadvantaged than ourselves.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Strawn. Councillor Woodhead, did you wish to?
Thank you. Yeah, it's just a kind of an additional point, really. I did inquire with the manager of Biggleswade Library about, well, two things. One was around IT support or banking, online support, if you like, for older people who perhaps didn't have the confidence or the skills around this. They offer they have some volunteers that do this sort of thing, but it's very, very limited, and they're kind of stretched capacity at the moment. But they also mentioned that they have the Barclays banker, I think the community banker that comes in so many days a week, and the rest of their facilities are full. So the Lloyds or whatever will have to find another location, because I think the library is already full in terms of having, just by way of information. So that avenue of having the library as a facility is now already being maxed out. So that does pose a potential problem, but that's something that Lloyds would have to deal with. But it's worth maybe flagging in the correspondence.
Okay, I'm just conscious that we need to get to I'm going to go with Councillor Barrett, and then the Councillor Barrett, we're going to then bring it to a
It's just one quick point. It's a practical point around if we go through this process cash access, and it's a decision that the post office is one of the answers here. Physically, I don't think the post office we have at the moment is big enough to do all of the work that we're potentially going to be putting on it. So would it be possible for the postmasters to perhaps come along next time at one of our meetings to actually explain if they could actually expand to be able to take on all these extra bits and pieces, assuming that we agree to going forward with this tonight?
Okay, well, we'll park that for now. Thank you. I did say that I'd allow Peter to speak, and I haven't done so. So Peter, apologies for that.
Just very briefly. So I think these are really helpful conversation pieces here, but we're right to say that we should, whatever resolution you come up with should be very thoughtful several months ago, we approached Cash Access UK in regard to ATM related issues, if you remember. And the response was they looked at the information and that we didn't meet their criteria, particularly in regard to the Sandy availability. When you complete the cash access assessment, and we clearly need to do another assessment, then there are three things that they look at. They look at access to ATMs, access to cash, whether it's appropriate to have a banking hub. Those are the three things that they need to look at. Yeah, that new assessment needs to happen, and any resolution you make needs to encourage that to happen. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, Councillor Strawn, and then could you right. So in terms of then to summarise, if I may, feel free to correct me as we're going along. So that we've got, I'm going to use Councillor Patel's motion as the basis of it. So item 1, I think the formally request link to access, to link to reassess Biggleswade as a priority. I think that stands. It relates to cash access. We've got engaged with local stakeholders, included cash access link, etc. I think that stands. I think work with our local MP, and I think we've also made reference to write to our MP. Are we happy to include writing to our MP to include that? Go on, Councillor Patel.
So, yeah, so regarding the MP, that's fine, but I think Grant also mentioned earlier CBCR in the background as well, so maybe liaise with.
Yeah. So, yeah, I've got that as well, but yeah, you're right. So also write to Central Beds Council, and so engage with the work with our local MP, but also write to our local MP and banking representatives. So I think that stands. Support the local postmasters' efforts. I think that stands from what I'm indicating. We've also got reference to writing to Lloyds Bank. So Councillor Woodhead's motion about writing to Lloyds Bank, expressing disappointment and particularly focusing on that, but also about the lack of ATMs. We've covered about contacting Central Beds. And the fact also the resolution needs to include the completion of a new cash access application. Is there anything else, Councillor Strawn?
I mentioned approaching other local councils, parish councils, because they're part of the equation. And I think we ought to, when we're looking at the assessment, part of it is down to vulnerable old people. There's quite a lot of questions on the slide up there that's actually very helpful. So whilst we were rejected for cash access for ATMs, the banking hub is a very different issue, and I think the radius for towns is within a mile, and 3 miles for rural areas.
Fine.
Sandy's more than 3 miles away, so and there's no sign of a hub there.
So essentially, approaching local councils to consult with them as well. Yep. So I think Catherine will be able to summarise that more or less once she's reviewed the tape. But broadly, all those in favour, then please show. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay. We will move then on to item 10, planning applications. So firstly, then 10A, 36 Oak Crescent, erection of a single-storey rear extension and roof lights following demolition of the existing structure. Comments, please. Let's say subject to neighbours. Okay. 10B, the Leylands, 104 Broom from Stanford. I'm not sure why this has been brought to us.
I don't think we should comment on it. It's not in our area.
Yep. Thank you. Unit N, so 10C, Unit N, A1 Retail Park, installation of mezzanine floor space. I think we've seen an additional note in relation to this one. Any comments on this one, please?
No objection.
No objection, subject to neighbours again. Unit 1, Cemetery Park, Gold Road, new employee retail unit ancillary to the existing distribution centre. Comments?
It's a co-op.
Yes.
Just for employees.
Yes.
And I think they call it a shelf edge technology product. So it's just for the employees. It's not for anybody else. So there was a suggestion that it could be open to some residents, but it's not.
Fine. No objection again. Happy with that, everybody? Yep. Okay. So well, then next item then on the agenda then is planning application outcomes. Comments in relation to planning application outcomes then, please. There's a couple there where we've got confirmations. Any comments? Not in, Councillor Russell?
Just pleased to see that this business about the replacement of the front doors has been withdrawn. So maybe we will get wooden front doors.
Okay, thank you. So I'm sensing we note this report. Thank you very much. So we'll move on to item 12, accounts, financial administration. Mr. Bohr.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the usual 4 reports are sorry, on the council's website, and this report includes the balance sheet, the income and expenditure account, the payment listing, which includes BACS payment, direct debits, and all standing orders for December 2024. The projected outing after at the end of December 2024 is a deficit of just about 40,000. But as mentioned before, officers, we are doing all that we can to reduce this deficit by the end of March 2025. Part of the activities include seeking 3 codes for every purchase in accordance with the financial regulations, and also reviewing all the contracts, and also we are monitoring the income streams to make sure that we do all that we can to increase them at the end of the financial year. The recommendation is for members to consider and approve the December financial management report. Thank you.
Okay. Comments, please. Councillor Strong?
If members have considered the report and haven't got any questions, may I move that we approve it?
Seconded by Councillor Agnew, or do you want to comment?
Just I wanted to ask a question to Mr. Bohr about the midsection where the corporate management is, and we're talking about the precept. Did we not exchange the notes about setting it up as a separate line? I'm not sure, maybe I'm missing it. With that chunk of 1 million, whatever.
Sorry,
I can take it offline. I think it was the semantics of this report and a couple of
right, yeah.
And in the commentary section up in the appendix, there was a small spelling mistake. Sorry, it keeps repeating itself.
All right.
From report.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank
you very much. It's well noted.
Okay, so thank you. So subject to that, Councillor Agnew, are you happy to second, or is, yep? Yes. Okay, thank you. Any other comments? So before we take the vote, so all those in favour then please show. Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Just check where we're up to. We're now moving on to then items of information. So we're on the Access for All Network Rail update. Members to note the information from Network Rail. Councillor Russell, did you want to comment?
It's interesting to see the letter they actually sent to the neighbours, but we've had all this other information before as a council, so I just note it.
Yep, thank you. Unless anyone else wishes to comment? No? Okay, we'll note that report. The letter, and then we're then on to temporary closure of Pegasus Drive. Members to note the information. Any comments on there? Note it, okay. The members to note the information for active travel in relation to the site of the former Woodlands Nursery. So it is indeed on the agenda, albeit in a slightly different format to the response to Northern Parish Council, but it's on the agenda. How would you like to proceed with this one? Over to members to speak. Councillor Alban and then Councillor Strawn.
We all heard the presentation earlier. I know this is an item for information, but I think we should reiterate our support for the underpass. Looking at the Active Travel England report, it says basically the crossing should be safe, direct, convenient and accessible for people of all abilities. And we heard about the proposed bridge, which would take people 600 metres out of their way, and also the height of the proposed bridge. So the underpass is the preferred, would be the preferred option for most people, I would say. And I think we should reiterate, as I said, reiterate our support that we've given before to Northill and as we do before. Sorry, I'm having trouble speaking. But also they did raise the address at the beginning of the council, the possibility of a joint campaign group. Now I don't know what that entails particularly, but that's perhaps something that should be explored rather than, you know, immediately supported.
Okay, thank you. I think I had Councillor Strawn next, then Councillor Russell.
I'm happy to second Councillor Allburn's proposal. I think that what was being suggested is that there be a kind of joint working group between this council and Northill Council, and if Councillor Allburn would include it within the proposal, and that we contact the clerk to Northill Parish Council with a view to possible meeting between officers and a couple of members of each council to see how we can work together to achieve the best ends for both parishes.
Okay, so that's a sort of propose and second. Are you happy with that to be added in, Councillor Alban? Yeah, Councillor Russell.
Yes, it's interesting, the active Travel England response. Councillor Alban has just quoted about being safe, direct, convenient, etc. And then on the bottom of page 95 of our pack, it says that it should be step-free. But then I was a bit taken aback on 97 when it talks about next steps. It says a detailed design provided for the bridge, which I thought was quite disappointing. So although Active Travel England submitting this objection has caused the application to be withdrawn, it's not completely where we'd like to be. And I'd just like to say that I've attended, I think, all of the meetings that Richard Fuller had over this issue. And I'm happy to be involved in any working group. And I think it should be a working group, not a campaign group. I don't think we should be involved in campaigning as such, but a working group with them to see how we can help support them or take things forward. I'd be very happy to continue to be a part of those discussions. Okay,
so the proposal was to some form of group. Are you happy for that to be a working group, or what? On the back of Councillor Russell's comments, or did you how did you want this to move forward, Councillor Alban? And then,
well, I think I suggested just explore options at this point, but I think Councillor Strawn sort of embroidered that a little bit with actually contacting Northill Parish Council and discussing it, you know, setting up a meeting basically. So I think perhaps that's the starting point and see what comes out of that.
Fine. So engage with Northill Parish Council, sort of agree a way forward, and subject to then having members involved in that, members of the two councils to discuss the way forward. Okay. I think all those in favour then please show, please. Thank you. I think it's unanimous. Okay, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda then, which is Dunton Lane Cable Works update. Any comments? Oh, we've got some pictures. Councillor Russell.
Just to say that I think we've all seen this information before. It doesn't really take us much further forward. And when we got this information by email some time ago, I went back and said, and what are the next steps? Where are you going to be digging up next? And of course, I've had no answer.
Yes.
And I think, you know, we need to go beyond this now. So I would like to see officers just going back to them and saying, this is now somewhat out of date. Where are we?
Yep.
And what's happening next?
Peter, happy to go back with that? Yep. Anything else anybody wants to comment on this one? No. Okay, so we'll go back to and ask a further update to be sent out to members. Okay. The next item then is a public open session, adjourned to up to 15 minutes, etc. No members of the council, a member of the public present. Anyone online wishing to speak? I see Catherine. So that's a no then. So this is a following is a formal resolution that will be moved. It's advisable in the public interest, the public and press are excluded whilst the following exempt issue is discussed. A planning update, community sports hub and the town clerk's performance. All those in favour of going into exempt session, please show. That is unanimous, in which case we'll go into